If you tell a stressed out farming couple that they just need to communicate better, um, you might as well be telling a dying, withered crop to simply grow harder.
Right. Yeah, it's completely useless advice.
It really is because,
Yeah.
I mean, traditional couples therapy, it often assumes that work stress and life stress are two different things, right? You
It is.
clock out, you go home, you vent about your boss.
Exactly. But when your boardroom is your kitchen table
Yeah,
and your coworkers or your spouse or your parents or your kids, that boundary doesn't just blur, it vanishes completely.
it vanishes. And, as a peer mentor for farmers right here in Hawaii, stepping up to help your community, you already know this. You're doing this work because you want to provide real grounded support to reduce suicide rates,
Hmm.
right? To build genuine resilience among agricultural professionals.
Yes. And that's why we're here.
Exactly. So today's deep dive is designed specifically for you. We are dismantling this really fascinating framework for understanding relationship strain in farming families. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Hmm.
Because to actually help the people you're mentoring, we have to completely flip how we view relationship problems on the farm.
We really do.
Like, we have to stop seeing a screaming match over a broken tractor as a personality flaw.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it requires a massive paradigm shift when you're sitting on the tailgate of a truck with a fellow farmer and they're venting about this constant icy silence with their father or maybe explosive arguments with their spouse.
Yeah, your reflex is to think something is just fundamentally broken with those two people.
Exactly. But in the agricultural world, relationship strain is rarely a sign of individual pathology. It's actually a glaring, flashing indicator that the entire ecosystem is buckling under immense pressure.
Wow. The whole ecosystem.
Yeah. Think of human relationships as living organisms, right? If a plant is failing to thrive, you don't blame the seed.
Right, you look at the environment.
Exactly. When soil gets compacted by, say, heavy machinery or baked by a severe drought, it becomes so dense that water just runs right off the surface. The roots literally cannot breathe or spread.
They're just trapped.
Right. And human relationships under chronic agricultural stress, they act the exact same way. The individuals harden up and connection it just bounces off.
It just bounces off. So to fix compacted soil, we can't just pour more water or, more communication advice on top of it.
No, it won't absorb.
Right. We have to figure out where that crushing weight is coming from in the first place.
Mhm.
And when you look at the psychological architecture of farm stress, that pressure comes through three very distinct lenses.
Yes, the three-lens framework.
Exactly. And as a mentor, learning to spot these three lenses in a conversation, I mean, it'll change everything about how you support someone. So let's look at the first one, the intrapsychic lens,
Yeah, so intrapsychic, this is the pressure of what is happening entirely within the individual.
the inner life, basically.
Yeah. Right, the inner life of chronic stress. We're talking about the profound physical fatigue that, just settles into your bones after a 14-hour day. But more dangerously, it is the profound threat to personal identity.
Oh, that's a huge one.
It is. In farming, the line between what I do and who I am is practically non-existent.
Yeah, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle.
Exactly. The core belief often becomes, if the farm struggles, I struggle. If the crop fails, I am a failure.
Man, that's heavy.
It's incredibly heavy. The nervous system actually internalizes fluctuating market prices or the spread of a crop disease as a direct threat to personal survival and self-worth.
That identity threat is just massive. I mean, think about it. If you have a bad day working at a bank, you're just a banker having a bad day, right?
Right.
But if you lose your grandfather's macadamia nut orchard to an invasive pest, you feel like you've betrayed your entire bloodline.
Exactly. It's a deeply internal, solitary agony.
But obviously that internal pressure doesn't just stay bottled up forever.
Oh, it leaks outward.
Which brings us to the second lens, the interpersonal. This is the space between people.
And this is where the mentors usually get called in.
Right, the crisis point.
Yeah, the interpersonal lens is where we see those classic relational patterns erupt. The endless conflict loops where a couple has the exact same argument about the feed bill every single Tuesday.
Right, or those sudden unexplainable silences at the dinner table.
Yes, exactly. Or intense role confusion, where a younger farmer isn't sure if they're arguing with their boss or speaking to their business partner or trying to get approval from their mother.
Oh, man. Yeah, the lines are so blurred. So the interpersonal lens is really where the intrapsychic pain becomes visible behavior.
Exactly.
It's the battlefield.
Yeah.
But the battlefield itself is sitting on top of an even larger tectonic plate, which brings us to the third lens, the transpersonal.
Right, the beyond.
Yeah, this is what is happening around and beyond the individuals. It's the larger ecology of the farm, right?
Hmm.
We're talking about profound land attachment.
Multi-generational expectations, too.
Yes, especially here in Hawaii. I mean, that might mean navigating really complex family land disputes or dealing with the extreme isolation from mainland supply chains.
Oh, yeah, where the cost of shipping fertilizer suddenly doubles overnight.
Right, or seasonal rhythms and just the absolute terrifying uncertainty of the weather.
It's so out of their control. The transpersonal lens it's like gravity. You can't see it, but it constantly dictates how heavy everything else feels.
Wow, gravity. I like that.
Yeah, because a farmer might not consciously wake up and say, I am stressed by global supply chain economics, but that reality is pulling down on their nervous system every single time they look at a ledger.
So to put this in perspective for the mentors listening, how do these three lenses actually interact in a real everyday argument? Because, I mean, nobody stops in the middle of a fight to say, excuse me, my transpersonal gravity is acting up today.
Yeah, right. No, if we connect this to the bigger picture, they all operate simultaneously. They really do.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say you're mentoring a couple, and they tell you they had a massive blowout argument about who is supposed to fix the irrigation line.
Okay.
On the surface, that is pure interpersonal strain. It's an argument about chores and roles. But if you look deeper, the fuel for that fire is intrapsychic.
Right. One or both of them are operating on, like, 3 hours of sleep.
Exactly. And they harbor this deep, unspoken terror of financial ruin. And surrounding all of that is the transpersonal pressure.
The gravity.
Yes. Maybe it hasn't rained in a month, the drought is worsening, and the legacy of 3 generations is sitting right on their chests.
So they aren't just arguing about a PVC pipe?
No, not at all. They are arguing under the crushing weight of the entire agricultural ecosystem.
Man, when you lay it out like that, it's a miracle anyone on a farm is still speaking to each other.
It really is.
Because when people are under that much crushing weight, the brain's only goal is survival, right?
Right.
And this is where the conflict loops really dig their claws in. Because people do not survive pressure in the same way.
No, they don't. And when the nervous system detects a massive threat, people naturally split into 2 completely opposite survival camps.
And recognizing this split will be one of the most powerful diagnostic tools in your mentoring kit, right? So let's break that down.
Yeah, absolutely. When stress hits, some people become what we call external processors.
Okay.
Their nervous system moves toward emotion to find safety. They need to talk it out.
They seek reassurance.
Yes, they want their stress acknowledged by someone else. They fundamentally regulate their own heartbeat through connection and closeness. For an external processor, naming the fear with another human being is what makes the fear manageable.
So to them, isolation is the ultimate danger. Like, if we aren't talking about the drought is going to kill us.
Exactly. It feels life-threatening not to connect.
But then you have the complete opposite end of the spectrum, right? The containment processors.
Right.
When the pressure spikes, these folks move entirely toward containment. They hyper-focus on tasks. They organize the barn, they go fix the truck, they withdraw into their own space.
Yeah, their mantra becomes, we just need to get through it.
Just put your head down.
Exactly. For a containment processor, the amygdala has equated safety with physical control over the environment. Talking about the fear feels like bleeding out.
Wow, bleeding out.
Yeah, it feels actively dangerous to them because it takes energy away from fixing the tangible problem. They find their emotional regulation through order and physical action.
Okay, but let me push back on this a little bit, though.
Sure.
Because if I'm mentoring someone and they tell me their partner just walks out of the room every time farm finances come up, I mean, my alarm bells are ringing. That sounds like stonewalling.
It does look like that, yes.
Right. It sounds like a refusal to engage.
Yeah.
How do I, as a mentor, not just view the containment person as ignoring the problem? Because walking away from a tough conversation seems inherently destructive to a marriage.
Well, it is incredibly common to view it that way. And I guarantee the external processors you mentor feel entirely abandoned when their partner walks away.
Oh, yeah. They must feel totally rejected.
But we have to look at the mechanism of what is actually happening in the brain here. These are not communication preferences, and they are definitely not character flaws.
There's survival strategies.
Deeply ingrained survival strategies. When partner A, the external processor, says, we need to talk, they are desperately trying to protect the relationship so they don't drown in anxiety.
Right.
But when partner B, the containment processor, says, I'm going out to the shed to fix the tractor, they are physically triaging the crisis so the farm doesn't collapse.
Wow. So they aren't ignoring their partner at all. They are prioritizing the fire.
Exactly. If the barn is literally on fire, you don't sit down to process your feelings about the flames, you know? You grab a bucket.
You grab a bucket. But the tragedy is that the external processor sees the bucket grabbing as abandonment.
That is the core tragedy right there. And the profound realization for you as a mentor is this. Most of the couples you work with are not actually fighting about the farm issue itself.
They're fighting about how the other person copes with the pressure.
Yes. The external processor feels hurt by the distance. The containment processor feels attacked by the demands to talk.
So they're just caught in a crossfire of coping mechanisms. I mean, intrapsychically, one feels terror and needs closeness. Personally, the other appears cold and distant.
And transpersonally, they're both just reacting to a brutal, unforgiving season they didn't even create.
Exactly. And this loops us right back to our soil metaphor. Telling these two exhausted, terrified people, hey, you just need to communicate better, is like yelling at concrete.
It really is. The advice just bounces right off their defensive armor.
Right.
Because when survival styles collide like that, the nervous system is way too hijacked to absorb advice. You have to literally alter the environment. You have to aerate the soil.
You need a way to slow the physiological cycle down.
Right. Yes, and regrow the connection from the ground up, creating these tiny pockets of space where life can actually take root again.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because there is a practical framework that addresses exactly how to aerate that soil, and it's built around the acronym SOIL.
Yes, SOIL.
Well, what I appreciate about this approach is that it is not a slick corporate communication strategy. You can't just mandate intimacy in the middle of a harvest, right?
No, absolutely not.
This is a model of relational cultivation. It honors the fact that a seed only grows when the conditions allow it. SOIL is about creating those conditions. So let's break it down. The S stands for slow down.
Right. And slowing down is the biological prerequisite for any kind of relational repair. But we have to be very, very precise about what that means in an agricultural context.
Yeah, because it doesn't mean taking a 2-week vacation to Maui.
No, that's impossible for most farmers. Slowing down means pausing reactivity. It is the conscious, intentional act of stopping the escalation so the nervous system can exit the fight or flight mode.
Because growth simply cannot begin in a state of frantic, terrified motion.
Exactly.
But when I first looked at this concept, telling a farmer in the middle of a crisis to slow down sounded almost insulting. Like, if the irrigation pipe just burst and water is flooding the field, how do you pause? But the mechanism here is about micro moments, isn't it?
It is entirely about micro moments. It's the decision to sit quietly in the cab of your truck for 60 seconds before you walk into the house after a disastrous day.
Instead of carrying all that kinetic rage straight into the kitchen.
Yes. It is taking 3 deep, measured breaths before responding to a sharp comment from your spouse. Or physically stepping outside just to let the cool air hit your face.
So slowing down isn't doing nothing.
No, it's actively intervening in your own neurochemistry to make room for a different kind of response.
You are creating a tiny pocket of air in that compacted soil. I love that. And once you have settled the nervous system, even a fraction, you can move to the O in SOIL, which is open up.
Right, open up.
This is where we talk about softening defensiveness. Because if you think about a literal seed, that hard outer seed coat has to physically soften and become permeable before the sprout can push through.
Exactly. If it stays completely armored to protect itself from the dry dirt, it stays dormant forever.
And the human equivalent of that armor is defensiveness, right? We build it to survive the intrapsychic threat, that awful feeling of failure.
Yes. So opening up means moving from that rigid armor toward permeability.
But it doesn't mean you have to, collapse into a puddle of tears, right? Or suddenly become a master of vulnerability.
Not at all. It simply means a willingness to be touched by what is actually happening in the room, just acknowledging the hurt, the grief, or the sheer exhaustion beneath the anger.
So practically speaking, in a tense farmhouse kitchen, what does that permeability actually look like? Because a containment processor isn't going to suddenly deliver a Shakespearean monologue about their feelings.
No, they definitely aren't. It can be incredibly subtle. Verbally, it might just be admitting, I am more overwhelmed than I realize right now.
Or, I feel myself shutting down, give me a minute.
Exactly. But often it's entirely nonverbal. It's uncrossing your arms. It's sitting down at the kitchen table instead of pacing aggressively around the island.
Physically turning your shoulders toward your partner instead of away from them.
Right. You are just signaling to their nervous system, I am not a threat.
Just softening the shell.
Yeah.
And once that shell is softened, once you have slowed down and opened up, the seed has to start reaching outward into the surrounding world.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the I in the framework. Invite connection.
Yes.
Now, for the mentors listening, I think this might be the most crucial paradigm shift of the whole model. Because we are so conditioned to believe that connection requires deep verbal dialogue.
We really are. We have a very narrow view of intimacy in modern psychology, you know? We often assume it only counts if people are staring into each other's eyes and talking about their childhoods.
Right.
But on a farm, inviting connection is simply creating an opening for relational contact in whatever form is genuinely accessible in that moment. You do not have to use words to regulate someone else's nervous system.
Wow. It's like the plant sending out its very first root tendrils. The root isn't making a sound. It's not announcing its presence.
Yeah.
It is just making quiet, vital, physical contact with the environment around it.
That's a great way to put it. The mechanism here is shared nervous system regulation. It is deeply physiological.
So what does that look like?
Well, inviting connection might look like walking out to the fence line and repairing it together in absolute sustained silence.
Yeah.
It could be waking up early, pouring 2 cups of coffee, and just sliding one across the table without saying a word.
With just a hand on a shoulder while checking the weather app.
Exactly. Shared labor and shared rhythm sync the breathing and lower the heart rates of both people simultaneously.
In the culture of farming, doing the work together is the connection. The shared physical burden is the intimacy.
It really is.
And that leads beautifully into the final piece of the framework, the L, which stands for listen deeply. And again, if we aren't relying solely on words, listening deeply takes on a whole new meaning.
It does. It demands listening with the whole self. Body, heart, intuition, and spirit.
So back to the plant metaphor.
Right. What's fascinating here is a plant doesn't have ears, right? It listens to its environment through its entire physical being.
The roots seek out moisture. The leaves angle toward the light.
Exactly. The entire organism is constantly responding to the temperature, the season, and the gravity. Deep listening for a human is that same holistic responsiveness.
So for a farmer, listening deeply means tuning back into those 3 lenses we started with, right?
Yes.
It's listening inward to your own intrapsychic state, admitting, my bones are aching and I am terrified of the bank.
Yes, and it's listening between you and your partner interpersonally. Hearing the actual panic underneath that really harsh criticism they just snapped at you about the tractor.
Right. And crucially, it is listening beyond, tuning into the transpersonal gravity.
That transpersonal awareness is the game changer. It really is. It is the ability to look at your spouse and realize we aren't actually mad at each other. The coffee crop has leaf rust, the shipping costs just skyrocketed, and we were both just terrified.
Wow. When you listen deeply to the environment, you stop treating your partner as the enemy.
Exactly. You start treating them as a fellow survivor of the storm.
That is so powerful. Okay, let's ground this right into the red dirt of Hawaii for a minute.
Sure.
As a mentor, sitting down with someone who is struggling, how do you help them apply SOIL to the specific everyday crises that happen on a farm? Take the parent and adult-child dynamic. This is notoriously heavy.
Oh, very heavy.
You've got an adult child trying to innovate or save the family farm. Their parent is still technically holding the deed, and the generational friction is just off the charts.
Right. The legacy pressure there is immense. It's a massive transpersonal load. So if you are mentoring the adult child, you guide them through SOIL.
Okay.
It begins with slowing down to interrupt the pattern of quick defensive snapping when the parent criticizes, say, a new organic farming method. You take the pause, you let the sting dissipate before you open your mouth.
And then you move to O, open up,
Yeah.
softening the armor.
Yes. Instead of getting defensive about the farming method, the adult child might name the underlying legacy fear, saying something like, I know we see this differently, but I am terrified of being the generation that loses this land.
Man, that kind of vulnerability completely disarms the interpersonal fight, doesn't it?
It does. It changes the dynamic from a battle over methods to a shared fear of failure.
And then for I, invite connection. The invitation doesn't have to be some big formal board meeting.
No, it might just be, hey, let's take a walk down to the lower pasture and look at the irrigation.
And while walking, UL, listen deeply. You pay attention not just to the broken pipe, but to the deeper identity concern of a parent who is watching their physical strength fade,
Mm.
right, and struggling to pass the baton.
Yes, exactly. That is SOIL in action. It diffuses the bomb.
It really does.
Yeah.
But but what about the farmer who is just completely isolated, personal overload?
Mm.
The individual who is burning out, carrying all three lenses by themselves, and feels like they are just drowning.
Yeah, that's a tough one. For the isolated farmer, slowing down is almost an act of rebellion.
Really?
Yeah, it means intentionally stopping the desperate push to just get through it, even for 5 minutes. And opening up is profoundly vulnerable. It is the moment they look at a mentor like you and admit, I am not doing as well as I look right now. I am sinking.
Which is an incredibly dangerous thing to admit in an agricultural culture that practically worships grit and stoicism.
It goes against every instinct they have. But that admission is the hard seed coat finally cracking open.
Right.
From there, inviting connection might mean asking a neighbor to come help with a really mundane task, or even spending intentional non-working time with the livestock or the land itself just to remember why they love it.
And listening deeply is the practice of noticing what their own nervous system is begging for,
Mm.
right? Which is usually rest, or simply the presence of another human being who understands.
Exactly.
And this brings up a critical juncture for you as a mentor, because sometimes doing this peer-to-peer or trying to aerate the soil on your own is just not going to be enough.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the soil is so severely compacted by years of drought that you need heavier equipment.
Yes.
Part of your job, maybe the most important part, is normalizing the step of getting outside professional help.
Destigmatizing clinical support is absolutely essential. The framing you use with your peers is vital here. Seeking outside support, whether it's therapy, financial counseling, or mediation, it does not mean you have failed.
Right.
Does not mean you are weak or bad at communicating. It simply means the relationship is holding more transpersonal and intrapsychic strain than it can metabolize on its own.
Because entrenched conflict loops, deep grief, overwhelming generational pressure, these things compound over decades.
They do. Getting professional help is just farm maintenance, but for the humans running the farm.
I love that. Farm maintenance for the humans. You wouldn't let a tractor engine seize up, just out of stubbornness, right? You shouldn't let a marriage seize up either.
Absolutely not.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, let's synthesize exactly what this means for you, the listener, as you step into this mentorship role. The farming families you are supporting here in Hawaii are incredibly resilient. The sheer perseverance, the deep loyalty to the land, the grit it takes to keep an agricultural operation alive against all odds, those exact same qualities can absolutely sustain a relationship.
They can.
But strength alone is not enough. A seed can be incredibly strong, but if the soil is like concrete, it will die. Relationships require the right conditions to cultivate growth.
And that is the core philosophy to carry with you. The ultimate truth you can offer to the farmers you mentor is this. Taking care of your relationship, tending to your own nervous system, is not a distraction from taking care of the farm.
No, not at all.
It is the very mechanism of how the farm stays alive. The humans are the most critical infrastructure on the property.
It is all one interconnected ecosystem. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over the next time you step out onto the land or sit down on a tailgate to listen to a fellow farmer who is struggling. If the farm and the family truly are a single, intimately connected organism reacting to the exact same pressures, the same markets, and the same weather, how might the simple, terrifying act of softening your own defensive armor actually be the most important agricultural work you do all season?